Hey guys, this is Jay Calderon with Jay Unboxing here, giving you my personal prediction for the perhaps fight of the year between super middleweight champion of the world Canelo Alvarez versus fellow titleist Billy Joe Saunders. Now remember, this is just my take. Yours can be left down in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Okay, now getting more into the specifics of the fight, you do have Canelo versus Saunders. Now, the Mexican is the Ring Magazine world champion as well as the WBA and WBC super middleweight champion, while Saunders, the Brit, is the WBO's holder. This fight will be taking place at the AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, airing on DAZN on Saturday. And it's a very compelling fight between two men that are aiming to prove both very different things, but ultimately the same thing. Canelo wants ultimate unification, while Saunders wants to beat the best. But it basically comes down to legacy and wanting to cement yourself in the history books and currently as the best 168-pounder in the world. So, without further ado, let's get into the specifics. For Canelo to win, I think he needs to ultimately dictate the pace. A skillful fighter will always want to operate under their own pace, and Saunders will be no different. Therefore, Canelo needs to make sure he's the one that pushes the pace or allows things to slow down. And he can do that by starting strong, pressing Saunders against those ropes and making it uncomfortable for the Brit as the fight progresses. What also might work for Canelo is left hooks and right hands. Of course, this seems as obvious as possible, but against a southpaw, Canelo has an ability to land those shots. He has every punch in the books at his disposal, but the two most important against an elusive southpaw will be that left hook and that straight right hand. The left hook, of course, to kind of line him up, while the right hand is the one that sort of knocks him down. And he can use that to finish him off if he's landing it correctly and consistently. And finally, Canelo needs to cut off the ring. Don't follow him. While Canelo will always look to start fast, and he doesn't want to do it aimlessly, however, he needs to make sure he's cutting off that ring and eliminating Saunders' escape possibilities. If he's just following him around the ring, he'll miss many of his shots and end up walking into more punches than would be the case otherwise. Now, on the flip side of this, for Saunders to win, I think one of the things that he needs to focus upon is landing early and often. For many reasons, Saunders will need to start scoring fast, and the faster the better. He's likely already down a round now while I preview this fight, just based upon the circumstances, so starting hot is a requirement. But even tactically, Saunders has to keep Canelo honest, and that can only happen if Saunders gives the Mexican something to think about before just coming in because he has nothing to worry about. So he doesn't have to hurt him, but he does have to score. He also needs to win the battle of the feet. For a southpaw, the positioning of the feet will always be important, and this fight has no exception to that rule. Saunders will need to keep his lead right foot outside of Canelo's lead left foot to make sure the best shots for Canelo, that left hook and that right hand, for example, are far less likely to land or be effective when they do. And finally, those lead lefts can land. A jab will always be a boxer's best friend, and the leading jab can oftentimes set up a lot of the work for Saunders, and that's great in this fight as well. However, to throw something off pace that can make Canelo think will serve you well. And as the fight progresses, Saunders might want to incorporate some lead lefts that can allow for that to be the case. This means throwing that lead left almost even before the jab at time, even a couple times in a row, just to again make Canelo guess more than think about what you're doing next. Now, ultimately, I think my pick here is, I would say this, perhaps even more than a lot of people, I give Saunders a legitimate chance of having success in keeping this fight close. At his best, he can be a very elusive fighter, very tricky, very cagey, and with his skills as well as mindset, which is very tough, he can turn up in those big fights that he tends to often do and put forth a great performance. However, he might be catching Canelo at literally the absolute worst time to catch him. Canelo is in his moment. He has all the confidence in the world, and he has looked more or less untouchable since Gennady Golovkin outside of a few rounds against Sergei Kovalev. Really, I think Canelo starts strong and forces a decent fight out of Saunders, who probably keeps up with him and keeps it interesting as the fight progresses, but inevitably Canelo will land the shots, left hooks especially, that slow Saunders down and stop him late. The betting odds for this fight are pretty interesting. You have Alvarez as a clear favorite at minus 533 with Billy Joe Saunders at plus 580. Again, I think that's a little wide. While I do think they probably have it right, I do think Saunders, as a very skillful, unbeaten current titleist, probably deserves a little more credit for that. That being said, if you're someone who believes Saunders pulls off the upset here or has a chance to, you're definitely in one of those positions where you have some great odds looking your way. Otherwise, I mean, another play you could possibly look at is the fact that the fight, I believe, has a pretty high, and don't know the number off the top of my head, but a pretty high return on picking a draw. And in a fight where you think the favorite might not necessarily have to win the fight to not lose by just virtue of how professional boxing works and how judges tend to score fights, a draw might not be out of the question either. Whether or not one fighter or the other deserves to win, a draw can happen in these sorts of situations. In any event, my prediction record going into this weekend is 9-5-1 with 4 exact. So just so you guys have a kind of idea of where I'm at right now, but let me know what you guys are at. What have your bets been like recently? Your picks been like? Let me know down in the comments. Would love to hear your thoughts, predictions, bets, so on and so forth. Please be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and follow at jcaldron_JOB, and you can email me at jonboxing@gmail.com. Would love to hear from you there. Also, be sure to check out jonboxing.com for my schedule, results, betting odds, rankings, and more. And as always, until next time.